Okay, we're good.
We're on.
Yeah, we're on.
Help! Help! Autumn wants to see my feet.
I didn't say that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I
She
hate
also wants me
women.
to have giant boobs.
I hate women. They're trapping
Okay.
me.
Okay, fine. I'll just go.
Wait. I guess I'm playing
I'm just
both
gonna go
sides
downstairs.
myself. She's so short.
I'm not sure. Are you? I will fucking pick you up and
You
throw
just
you.
shrunk away and you went down. Therefore, I'm taller.
I was going downstairs. I don't know what you got planned.
I don't know. I'm just tall. So, totally.
You're not tall. You are
So
small.
tall.
You are
Like,
small.
I'm tall.
Like, if we went to a house party, we'd have to see whoever's taller than you, and it'd be everyone, including the house pet.
Wow.
Yeah. I hit
That's
low,
fucked
just
up.
like you.
Wow.
I poked violence today. All of my love and care was taken up beforehand as I helped a friend clean their apartment.
Oh, I am suffering. Goddamn.
Yeah. Welcome. You're in the splash zone of being destroyed by a fox.
Oh, okay. Up the
I see
game
that look
volume
you're
a
giving
little
me.
bit. I am looking at settings, woman.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Get a gray hair.
Gonna not be headbutt by your horns.
Why not? I just go.
I will be afflicted by the horny.
I think you just hit play whenever we are ready, but I am vibing.
Hold on.
We have like 2 more chapters planned in this, right?
Yeah, continue story. Where were we? Let's see. Ah, yes, alright.
Just beat chapter 1, yeah.
The good chapter. The deepest.
Yeah.
Right, we have Fern, Ulf Dragons, Yunthai, Thirsty Glen, Drifty, and Udley.
Oh yeah, Udley! My girl.
Fucking Udley.
Is that you? Are you Udley?
I thought it was Fern.
No, I was joking. I think I was Thurn, Ulf, and...
I had Fern because of I took the warrior.
You were Thurn, Yunthai, and Thirsty, I think?
Yeah, I took the Gilf squad.
Yeah, you got the oldies.
Yeah, you have Ulf, Drifty, and Udley.
Yeah, you get 2 boys. Boys.
So we gotta go to...
South?
A
Yeah,
lot
south.
of places.
I mean, we could go east first, or we could just go straight south.
Let's go to the scout area. We could send like 3 of them scouting and then 3
Okay.
of them...
You the boss, boss lady. You're teaching.
Alright.
Raid. Oh, okay. 1 second. We got a raid.
Oh, already?
Hi, Saya. Welcome in.
Hey. What's up, Saya?
Me.
Oh,
hi. It's a sheepy.
There's a sheep.
Hi. Welcome in, guys. I am. Sometimes.
Are they also sheep?
They are sheep. Cute sheep.
Hey. Follow sheep. There we go.
Hi guys, I hope you had a good stream. We're playing Wildermyth and being horny.
I mean, that's just the kind of thing. We have the Polycules ready.
Yeah. I hope you guys had a good Warhammer stream. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2.
Ooh.
Game's fun.
I know a lot of friends who would be good with that.
It's a good game. I'm not doing my usual spiel just because we're in a collab, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, are you doing the teachery stuff? Are you setting up our squad?
We're setting up the field trip.
Field trip.
Who do we send?
Probably like a warrior, a ranger, and a mystic, and then 2 rangers and a mystic.
I mean, we have... Yeah... Okay, so let's go Fern, Drifty, and Ulf for the first one.
I might get 2 characters.
Fuck yeah. And then... down here, we'll send the rest.
Udley!
Udley and Thirsty.
Love Udley.
Fuck yeah. Lesbian squad.
This game is fun. We got Bone Hog Hill.
Bone Hog Hill.
Hey, why did they go faster than the top squad, huh?
They have more rangers.
Oh, I didn't remember it worked like that. Okay.
Yeah,
More
warriors are the slowest.
thoggy.
Yeah, we gotta beat
God,
the
I love
robots.
Utley.
Utley is so good.
You look so like
Attack.
bimbo brained. Let me do the read along. There you go.
Oh no.
They're giving you a lot.
What the fuck?
Sometimes I wish I knew what they were saying, don't you?
Ow. Mm. You had the blue narrator.
Okay, I'm blue. Yeah. Guts rise against them, and Gus rise against them. Cold complaint.
Frickle. I'd really be concerned if it was the guts rising against them.
Yeah, the guts are coming up out of the ground, you know? Intestine
crap.
rising. And the quiet
no.
between gust is not by night things.
I've seen enough hentai to know where that's going.
Yeah, fun. The wind.
Right, I forgot you had the taped on goatee.
Yeah. Hi. Whoosh.
Yeah.
Gentai has to be nearby, I'm sure. So.
Chirp.
There's so many for
I'm
you.
having way too much fun.
You're getting all the SFX.
Yeah, this is us. Just actual pictures to superimpose our faces, and that would just be us the entire fucking time.
I can
Like,
edit.
it's the
I can take that and edit it for the thumbnail probably on YouTube later.
Yeah, I'm taking a screen cap.
That'd be smart.
Yeah. Just if the freaking wind goes cree, then that'd be great.
It has to be next.
Ah, crazy.
Well, we're not immortal, are we?
You good now?
I'm good. I'm just glad no one else saw us. Woofing.
Oh boy.
Oh. Oh, are they gonna be? Are they gonna be weird? Or are they gonna be friends? Can
Should we
scowl.
flip a coin?
We could.
Okay, I'll flip the coin. Heads or tails?
I mean,
Well,
heads
just
is one. Yeah, tails is two.
I got heads.
Okay.
+1 gay.
The gay buff. That's crazy.
The gay buff.
Stoicism.
and fortitude.
Ugly and thirsty are stronger.
Yes. Oh, these ones. See, I just need to take them out because I love
Oh, they're right.
these enemies.
They're right in front of us. Oh, there's a watchman. Okay.
I love the Morphologius enemies because it just sounds like they just give them like jobs and they just go crazy.
They're so cool. I'm gonna shoot this one. Bam. Up to you now. These are your characters. I'm just gonna watch.
What would this do? That does shackle. What does this do? Splinter blast. Or barrage. Given that Thirsty has the good old fortitude, I'm going to freaking barrage. Oh, she would be in range, so
Maybe we'll do the rock one. Oh yeah, that works too.
and barrage.
Eh.
And because the summon A is always a freaking pain in the utter ass. There we go.
Oh, they have the rivalry. That's what it is, right? I forgot Yuntai and Utley have the rivalry.
Oh, there's the big boy.
Utley's in a bit of a pickle.
Oh.
Let's just silk step away.
Infuse. Can I get that if I do infuse?
I honestly eventually want to play that one like Solasta or something. It's another like TTRPG style thing. You can like sit there and play with friends online.
I'm gonna
Interesting.
throw these ones down over here and shred some armor for that.
Bam. Utley is out of actions for the turn.
Gonna do that, the dodge attacks, and then get a bit closer, get more accurate, and then...
Yuntai kinda looks like one of my old comp sci teachers.
Comp sci teachers?
Yeah, computer science.
Oh, I thought you meant like a dialect.
No.
Because the Kansai dialect is a fucking thing.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Oh, interviews with the lamps?
Are your friends smart with all this cool knowledge?
Yeah, I was mostly like cooking. Bone lance.
You're gonna bone them.
Boned.
It's up to Yuntai
Man.
to shoot the Watchman. He's just
Whatever
watching.
Whatever you do not piss the android girls.
Why not?
Because you gotta keep yourself safe.
Just see if you just... Oh fuck, I hit the wrong button. Wait. I
It's
should
fine.
undo Adelie's movement, right? No, it didn't let me undo. Shit. She's just staring like an idiot now. She walked away and then walked back up to it when you said that.
Alright, I'm going to... Hold on. Constrict this. There we go.
Watchman and Adelie
Nope.
dying in a tree. I'm getting revenge.
Utley lives and thirsty.
He does. Yeah. Level 2. Or is that? Yeah, that's level 2.
Withdraw becomes a free action. That's kind of good.
Yeah, it's a cool one.
Soul splitting. When thirsty takes damage for each interfused object when is prevented, and the object takes 2 damage instead. That's not bad.
Self-care,
I
damn.
Elementalist.
Damn it. Water.
Water.
You have to also, I guess. Yeah, we're suffering together. Suffer from hydration.
Can't wait to have to go to the bathroom together because people just spam it.
My brain did not take that in a wholesome way. How's the adventuring party doing? Good.
Being elementalist.
We're shooting stuff inside a lantern. What the hell?
Yuntai will retire at the end of this chapter. Oh shit.
It's her last adventure. Maybe like...
We could salvage it.
Yeah, I mean salvaging's probably not bad. I don't think we need
we
it.
don't.
Oh yeah, Shibari for dummies on I forgot about our funny item names.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, well, then.
Goodbye, little fish goblin looking guy.
I love them. They're good.
He can
Sure.
secure. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. What do you want?
I
find
assume
an item, of
item.
course.
Yeah.
We
And
always
so
want to find an
sticky.
item.
We have our other
And
fight.
slain. With-
Come slain
Ooh,
bitches.
Let us be strong. Let us fuck up all the bitches.
It's her
I'm not making sounds for the
posterity.
birds.
No bird sounds, damn it.
No, no bird sound.
They're not talking, they're mad now, they're protesting.
Back.
God, they named this game as
Slosh. No.
You're sloshing? You're sloshing?
No.
Crazy.
Try again. Splush.
It's green.
Ancient conifers stand in the middle of the Camsling beaches where the ground rises. Great sequoias shudder up to towering redwoods. Thick-grown cedars mob their knees.
Slosh is good, yeah.
Swoosh.
That was the thing, wasn't it? So
Oh, shit.
weird. Oh, okay, I can't talk.
Sorry.
So
Sorry.
weird. So quiet.
I forgot enter hit next and I accidentally hit enter. I remember it well. Swoosh. They spotted it that morning. The apparition is familiar to Fern, and to the others through her stories of that night.
Oh.
Right, she was the one that grew the seed, right?
Yeah, she groomed the seed. She kept it alive.
Yeah.
Alright, I have Drifty. I just hope we're willing to turn away, or else to bow at his feet. Some of the locals call him Lord Ethergreen. You know, it's a wood to that guy. Quietly.
Yeah. They really
Giant
just look-
moving, like, earth guy? Yeah, it's a wood.
Man, what's a giant gold? Oh, that's just Captain Elm or something.
Made out of wood, so I'll say wood.
Drifty, what kind of things are wood to you? Oh, you know, anything that's hard from nature. So what's this rock? Just smash
He's
it with an axe.
simple.
Yep, that's hardwood. Making Drifty more and more himbo each day.
Yeah.
The earth holds its breath. Dampness heavies their eyelids, darkens their hair. Smears of silver shine on trunks, roots, and stones. They stumble and feel a path over rocks and wrecks, chasing the giant through its noise, barren world. Why has he got to smoke so much?
Damn, she's judging. Oh, I think it's stopped.
It has stopped. Thank you, narrator.
Thank you, Yang.
Think he's aware of us?
Take a bow for it.
Yeah, take a bow, everyone. For this wonderful voice acting opportunity. Thank you at the Academy.
It's the wool award.
Think he's
Like-
aware of us? Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. It was just dumb.
No, go ahead, I want to hear.
I was just gonna say, yeah, no, I'll like shave like a strip of wool off, I guess, like my woolly legs, and like give it to you.
Man, this is that's a gift.
It's an Academy Award. Odd gift of affection.
I guess.
It's better than a slobbered on book
Yeah,
or an empty bag of nuggets.
I'd rather not have either.
Women are hard. Thank you for the
Look.
resub.
Look, if you keep on giving me gifts like that, you'll just see like the friend level just go slowly and slowly downward each time.
Okay, what if I buy you a new whistle?
Okay, maybe.
We're so in chat.
God, give me equipment. That's how you get into that friend event and the secret ending.
Uh-oh. What does Wildermyth explain in detail right now? You cooperatively control a bunch of bitches and move around on a board and you fight stuff.
You create a polycule.
Or that, or you create a polycule. We have one apparently.
Long story short, it's an adaptive game that does have a couple of base campaigns, but we're just playing something that's like a randomly generated thing. So we have a story that is sort of modular, where we can like insert our characters and get our own little headcanons in anyway, but they still will react with the story. They're not like silent protagonists like in other games like this. It's got your 3 basic classes, your punchy dude, your bow and range, and your magic.
Good
And they got, like,
explanation,
cool
teacher.
subclasses. Yeah, I very good.
Teach
It's-
more.
It's fun. I will say it's fun. But,
I'm gonna get a desk asset and I'm gonna set it down.
I could send one to you if you want my desk asset I use.
Yeah, it'd be funny. I'll bring
Yeah,
that
maybe
next
next
time.
Hold on, I'll send it to you in a moment once we get to combat.
I'll get like a hand raised notification.
Oh my gosh.
Question.
Anyway, now it turns about somehow finding space. High and mostly hidden in haze, space must be hanging above them. Are we in trouble?
The little guy.
This little guy that we have. With the bending bark sounds, creaky hips, folding legs, it gently lowers itself, fitting its bulk to attractive treeless ground.
Damn it, Rara, why did I just read that?
Yeah. I could flashbang everyone if I wanted to, but I'm not going to.
Oh no, not my channel.
Don't worry, I've done it tons of times and I'm still on Twitch. Yeah.
My flashbang is lethal, I can't do mine. Everyone dies. Oh, that is cool, the face. Just carve a smiley face in though, he needs a smiley face.
Yes. He looks like a freaking this one-eyed, many-horned, crawling brown people eater.
What?
Yeah. Wood.
Well.
No, that's wood.
God damn it.
They're caught in its eyeless gaze, and a silence that grows and twists, grotesquely long. It could crush them, the fact that it's certain as soil. Stomachs hardening, innards clench, muscles coil. Stop saying that's a good time.
They're coiling.
Yeah, stop describing it and just go into it. Just have them like sloppily make out or something.
Whoa. What do you think Ulf is here for? He's here to fuck a dragon. This is as close as he's getting.
Right, he's the resident monster fucker.
Where's that? Who was that? Was it Thirsty?
I think Thirsty and Ulf are on like the same board, but Thirsty's down for anything. She's Thirsty. It's her nickname.
Oh.
Wait, go with it. That's a new one.
Fern can give away her heart?
Oh.
Huh? Does that mean Fern's gonna bang it?
Fern.
Her name's Fern. Wait, it's a giant plant.
I don't think attempting to communicate would be good. Snatching a twig from its mane would be evil. Fern gives away her heart would be another person who got into the... Because Ugly got with the fish dude. Fern coming back and here's going, I got with a tree?
I fucked a tree and I have a sapling in my palm.
And I'm sorry, Fern, but you're going to be paying child support, so I vote number 3.
I vote number 3.
Alright. Fern gave away her heart. It comes to her in a rush of knowing, the way a long, faded memory sometimes surges into focus. Standing with the Forest Lord's foggy silence, Fern knows, quick but with the weight of a thing considered all her life, the resolve sits in her. Her whispered words barely moved the mist, forcibly yielded. No one knows my heart is pine, it's soft and remarkable. Tender. I keep it hidden and hard-covered, but I'd give it to you. I really would.
Whoa. She said would.
Would.
This monster giving new meanings to branching paths. God damn it.
Someone just goes wood and the monster just replies back, yes, I am wood.
Fern's going in pretty... Fern, you alright? You're getting pretty close to it.
It's okay. The mist thickens around them, all spirals tight as white swooling yarn.
White yarn. I know what that means.
Oh no.
Sap? Oh no!
Thing of saps around them. No.
Aww.
Did she just get money shot?
Maybe he's embarrassed. Don't bully the wood.
Oh my god.
Don't bully him. He's trying his best.
He's not had a mate in 1,300 years.
He just fucked her by looking at her.
Just boops her nose and suddenly she like sprouts out another sapling 10 weeks later.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. The giant rises on groaning legs and commences his long march away.
He's a deadbeat dad too.
Yeah. Deadbeat dad won't pay child support.
He wrapped you in something. Oh. An armor?
Oh!
His money shot gave her armor.
Shit, she has armor.
You got a sap tribute.
Oh no. My voice.
Oh.
Fern's voice resounds, newly rich. A warm swirl of melodious wind to wrap lonesome furs. What? You never promised your mortal soul to a big tree you especially liked. Come on, let's go. She even admits to wanting to fuck the tree.
This party is freaky.
I like how they're just staring at her. They're just like, you know, we have a thing called limits in this group. Oh my gosh. Calm quiet accompanies them worldward. For some reason, Fern seems fine, better than fine. Years won't touch her.
Oh.
I hear deepists.
That means she's like gonna age slowly now? Oh.
Yes.
I'm a fan.
I hear deepists.
Adelawaits.
Squawk!
Why'd you add a random bird noise?
The birds.
This reminds me of Pokemon, so if I'd be catching the monsters and of it. Yeah, so like the combat's kinda like simple down, like I think you said Baldur's Gate last time, yeah.
No,
Right.
Oh, Stone Spear!
Yeah.
Like freaking Fire Emblem.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Fire Emblem's the best.
Honestly, who do we send for the Stone Spirit?
Who do we want to get a rock weapon? Tactics game.
What does a rock staff do is the real question.
I don't know. Oh, apparently Drifty is yours. Oh. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Guess you're Drifty's keeper.
Oh, whoopsies. Right, hold on. Can I go into, like, his profile and change him?
Not a big deal.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh no, I'm
Take it,
Drifty. I'm drifting. I'm drifting like my wood. Wait a minute.
You know what? Because I can easily just move up. You're gonna have to move the flame, I just realized.
I can't move it yet, sadly. Yeah.
Shit. Well,
They just go probably back there. Yeah, just have thing. Let's get up Fern, I guess. Is there a weirdly out of place skinship bonding like Fire Emblem?
Oh, she just gets it.
Oh, nice. No frying pan. Damn.
Yep. Sorry. Enchant tier 0 mace replaced with tier 1 stone mace. Fuck yeah. I mean, free tier 1 mace.
Looks so happy, the little rock
The
spirit.
Keep Basher? No.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
can't rename it here.
Shreds armor and pins all enemies. Whoa.
Was it a two-top? Yeah, Fern, you're keeping that. Okay, hold on. What's a good one?
Are you renaming it?
Yes, I'm renaming it. I need to rename it well.
The top weapon, you just call it the topper. I don't know.
I got a good one.
God, you didn't hear my joke about, like, something, like, I made some sort of, like, a lewd joke 2 seconds ago in the heat of combat.
There we go. I called it Gong Clubbin'.
Good name.
Right, Fern's gonna have an offhand weapon, I forgot.
Yeah, she's been using a one-hander. She technically could have had the lantern. Smack it off!
Just boop the snoot.
There's more enemies.
Yeah, wait, I can extinguish the flame. Hold on.
That works.
Actually, should I? Oh, there's another door here. Like,
Yeah, we have to open it, yeah.
Yeah.
Horn child.
And she's gonna move, so you can just put the flame in front of the door.
Horn child, it's, you know, they're horny, get it?
I'd rather not have the horny child.
Not like that. That might sound weird.
Yeah.
Why you do this?
What the fuck kind of cloak does she have?
You know.
Once per combat, Fern swirls her cloak and becomes instantly hidden, disappearing into a gray plane in a cloud of cedar-smelling mist. What?
That's a tree sap cloak, okay? It's called an unforgettable. Oh wait, no. Where is it?
An unforgettable luncheon is what I called that.
The Forest Lord's Cloak, a misty cloak of flowing 5 bestowed by Lord Evergreen, plus 5 dodge.
Ooh, she's a dodge tank now. Nice.
Damn, he
In the
dodged.
doorway and bonk this.
Bonk the shit out of him.
Wham. Oh, jeez.
He pinned the big guy and she killed him.
Smack with a stick.
God, women are cool.
Man, I wish women were real.
Me too. Me too. When I grow up, I'm gonna become a woman.
They told me to grow up hair, so I did.
Actually, I'm gonna blow up the horn kids. Only one of them.
I'll smack the other one. Oh, you little bastard.
Yeah. He's not dying. He's gonna punch Thern. He's here for it.
Took cover.
That was so, like, intense of a sound.
Okay, you little jerk. I'm going to smack you in the face. Actually, I could backslam you.
I hate that default fucking emote. I hate the squid emote on Twitch.
The squid emote? Why?
It just looks so weird. Why does he have a cyber eye?
Why not?
A cyber squid. I get cybering, I get squidding, but why together? I wish girls didn't exist. They bought all the Olivia Rodrigo tickets.
Yo. We can get Fern a lantern, maybe.
Yeah, she could dazzle enemies, I guess.
Yeah. Flame the lantern. Oh, extra health, great.
Being put in the tentacles, that's not cool.
Find an item.
Why is he so bitchy? Won't this mean the locals? He's being a hipster. Fuck him. We're getting an item.
Oh, this place was better before the locals moved in.
Oh my god, they're gonna move in and ruin it. There's an actually item.
Let's see what we got.
We don't have to probably. We can read through this, but we can't. It's up to you. I know it's kind of like yappy.
Yeah. We got hide, ingot, and spell threats. Ooh. And the fern shallow necklace.
Oh, it has fern in the name. Well, you know who that goes to.
Are we going to give it to fern?
It's fern. It's named after her. I mean, she has to take it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Alright, you three.
Musty hobble.
We can forge here, but we can also scout down here. We can send Thirsty, Yunthai, and Udley.
Don't just blame me for gentrifying the local areas, okay? Yang's responsible too.
Look, I'm sorry, but we need them to make stuff for us so we can actually do shit.
The teacher, give her more blame. I'm just a librarian.
You are going to be thrown.
And I'm made for tossing. I can go wee.
Yeah, you're right. You'd enjoy that too much. You know what? No, I'm going to duct tape you to the ceiling.
That's cool.
Fuck.
I'll see higher than I've ever been.
I'm gonna
just following orders on him, sis. I've been that low. It's nothing new.
Oh my gosh. Gloom glass ring stunt chance.
Stunts for like inflicts a percentage chance attacks will do extra damage. I guess we give it to like Drifty or Udley, I guess? I don't know.
I feel like Drifty.
Welcome in, Dreaming. Hi.
Is that M? That is M! Hey! That's someone I know.
Oh, I was kind of figuring off of like a new face popping in, but isn't she?
Let's... Oh, we have to carve a pass, potentially. Ugh.
Yeah. Do we want to... Yeah, we could also scout and then set up the pass, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna send the other squad down. Uh-oh.
Listen, don't... I'm being bullied by my chat again.
Look, it's allowed.
All I said is dreaming for Dreaming Emily. I don't know. I read first word and I go. It's my streamer brain.
Still cute.
Yeah, it's still cute.
It's still cute. Yeah. Attack!
Go, Udley!
They hike a mulchy hill above Broken Mallow Odory, making their final approach. The trees here actually look younger than the wider woods. Kind of odd.
Why do I feel like this sometimes? The heat and happiness, the luster, go gray and cold. Oh, she's depressed. Go cold inside me. What does that mean? Should I say something?
It's just something about getting older. Udley's leading the way, and it's she who spots the warm glow ahead. Did it flicker to life just now? Or maybe it's only been hidden behind trunks. Udley, if I swear this is another new ooze I want to be with, you're going to be freaking just smacked into the wagon.
Maybe she wants a fire boy too.
Oh my gosh, she's just getting a freaking reverse harem.
Who else but Udley feet?
Man, her parents missed the G, but everyone thinks she's amazing.
I mean
this place is pretty removed. The mud lovers seem to like it, but why? Mud lovers? Is that like a slur for the deepists?
I think so. Didn't we talk about them last time? They were the one that monster they kept talking about, and we just like wood because we didn't know what they looked like, but we said wood.
Yeah.
Tank.
Thunk. Thunk.
Maybe they appreciate the winter colors. Why not the fall colors? Why not the autumn colors?
Exactly. I like brown. I like purple. I like sort of blue.
Exactly.
I like
I'm the best.
Autumn,
thank you.
Autumn has all the good colors, I will say. Autumn and winter are the best seasons, though.
I do have good colors.
See, I'm a winter.
Nice colors. Guys, I think there's a campfire ahead. Might be someone.
Oh, new member to the Polycule? Could be a wild and dark-eyed traveler. A woodsman may be injured. Time for weapons?
She wants a woods woman. She wants a woman. I
Woods
know,
woman. Oh.
this isn't
Oh no! A gout of flame swirls in these saber rocks, silent, bright, and smokeless.
It's not a place to hang your kettle.
Oddly, I swear.
It's beautiful. I wonder why it's not hot.
Not hot, it's blistering. I feel it. Oddly, you okay?
Do you hear stories? Oh god, she's going crazy. Or is it just my mind that hears them?
Oddly, your take on goatees does not fit you. Oddly moves nearer to the spiraling inferno, apparently unscorched. Oddly?
Blood, my heart is beating.
Man, the two disaster lesbians try and take their freaking the youngest member of the Polycule
With her floating
away from
hair.
fire. Yes.
I remember one tall story. It's brief. It's for children. In early days, the sky's back was not so stiff. She bent and saw a handsome gray squirrel who climbed to the top of a redwood. What the hell? The sky fucked a squirrel?
Oh my gosh. Oddly? Getting really close.
Is she just gonna throw it? This squirrel, he chatted to her blithely, how he relished her stars in the autumn, went fuck you, and took comfort when she cast her cloudy hair. He thanked her for
Man, why
letting
do
the
you have a
sun
squirrel
bed
up in
through it.
there?
The sky was young then. She listened, rapturous with language, and was smitten. Why is she smitten by a squirrel?
Why not?
Squirrels are not cute.
Squirrels are edible.
I'm gonna fight him and lose.
Tasty.
I'm gonna fight a
on.
squirrel and lose. When she watched him plant his forest and watched the trees grow tall where he placed them, the sky thought to impress him by planting her own. Squirrels are more than the eye can see.
Squirrels are edible.
A lightning arm, she gently lowered, and a great tree of scarlet was born. But it was a greedy tree. It grew and grew and grew. So large it consumed the forest the squirrel had planted. Okay, Adelie. She's like has an empty stare too in that last picture.
She's just going everywhere.
And if I had time for a word, words took much longer to say. In those days, it swallowed the squirrel's body too.
Lovely. Where the fuck did you get the story from?
I think she just made it up.
Oddly, we get it. You like fire. Now, will you stop for 2 seconds?
She's about to push herself in. She's ready to go. She's gonna
Oddly, I
burn
get
off her
the
floating
freshest
hair
dignity,
strand. The sky began to wail, a terrible, gusting grief that left her face flushed dark. And the first rain was her tears, and the ocean filled with them. Ever after, thinking on the smile of that intrepid squirrel, she will weep, and the world will feel rain. Rain? Rain. I can speak.
Rain from fire.
That's the story I remember, and this place remembers. It's a piece of here, something left behind.
Oddly, did you get into the shrooms again? What's that even mean?
Stories of fire, you don't hear them? They leap and lick in my imagination. At this altar, once, people would gather and tell them.
Oddly.
But they're dead now. Those people are dead. The flames somehow endures.
Oddly, come away. You should be burning. How are you not?
Listen, I'm going to let it touch me. We let it transform.
Do you want to?
I think I know what it is. It sounds kind of fun. I think it'd be
do you want
fun.
me to-
I mean, but the thing
You
is, she
wanna
has her
go in?
water babe, so she'll go in like the water with him, and she'll just make smoke.
She'll make it very steamy.
Sounds kind of great. I like the steam.
Alright, fuck yeah, steam.
The fire
children.
in me. It all came.
Sorry.
She leans close. No
What?
ways.
Oddly?
Leans close and lets the fire climber rest.
Sorry.
Alright, I'll be alright. You can. I realized I took your narrator.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're good, that's yours.
She stands unharmed as flames fly all up your arm. Orderly as ants, but then... Oddly! A sudden massive fire wreathes Utley's body. You gotta make that sound. I made all the
It's
bird
monotone.
sounds. Yep.
It's monotone as ever. Oh.
Just as soon as the whirling flames will devour her.
Whoosh. I stole it. She has fire hands. She has fire on her forehead. She's hot.
Mm-hmm. They were
Call her-
to the coals.
Call her ugly feet. Look at her. She's gonna burn you.
What in...
What?
What in the dirt already? What are you doing?
Wrong instinct, Yuntai. It doesn't hurt. It just kind of tingles. In truth, I've always felt my heart was born to burn like a golden star. I meant to carry an ember in me and let it blossom into a brilliant... That's a weird, like, analogy for I meant to get pregnant.
Yeah?
That's how I'm
Rises
taking
like
it.
a wind, but the tree's not far off. Surely flood follows fire deepest. I
It's
mean,
called-
Udley is the redhead, so of
Feels like
course
a
she'd be getting
fire
fire.
circling now. It's interesting.
I like it.
Yeah. I love how much characters evolve in this we're playing.
Mm-hmm. Plus one legacy point as well.
Yeah.
Let's beat some people.
Dismay. Sky whales seem to be common. Sky whales are common in fiction.
So there's only one issue. Udley doesn't get fire out her arrows anymore.
Okay, you know why?
She's got a crossbow now.
No, I can shoot my bow. It says, right?
Eat.
Oh yeah, I do have that. Yeah, it's okay. I'll do this.
Oh,
Damn,
shit.
this girl's on
Wait, hold
fire.
on.
Yeah, that's your character.
Interfuse. I got an idea. We can interfuse the flame and fire leash people. Wait, what? Oh. Hold the phone.
Oh,
Hold the phone.
I see what's happening.
Infernal rain.
What? Oh.
Awesome.
The combos in this
saved
game
it.
are so cool.
I fucking love this.
The best part of the combat, the sheep with stars is back.
Mm-hmm.
Kill him! Get him! Wait, what is this?
She can move and then shoot. Oh, right, it'd be in range for ember arrows for that. That means that you can do that.
Damn.
Nice.
Hold it.
Can we move you like right there and try that?
All sea creatures are gorgeous swimming through the air. Sky jellyfish roll.
Interfuse with
Good taste, Emily. I've seen that a few times.
hiker.
Ying's the responsible player. I'm just here goofing.
I am,
I appreciate you.
says Emily, who eats like a bunny and a squirrel. Oh shit. Hey.
I have another cone of fire with their name on it if we want.
Let me get Yuntai out of the range
Yeah.
first.
Ready?
There we go.
Bam! More fire!
Yeah.
What a good
And
choice.
spreading fire.
The pyromaniac now. Aren't you happy with her?
Maybe.
Firearm left, fire tattoo. She can slip in the she can silk step with it.
Distance will kill. Very nice. I still love the mystics so much in this game, just interfusing with.
It's the coolest mechanic. It's a cool fantasy concept.
It's so good.
There's not really too much with that concept either out there.
Fox flight.
Yeah. Ember arrows. You have the easy one character this fight. Yang has to do the hard work.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, next fight you can take him over. So.
I know, I get to, I know. That's fun.
Dodge, you bitch.
I'm just joking. If I'm not causing a stink, am I really being a sheep?
Yeah, true.
Entai never made it to level 2. Right, she was old when we got her.
Yeah.
Oh.
Spare bolting. Well, Thirsty would need it, or Ulf.
I mean, it's an upgrade for Ulf, I guess it says, but it's... Oh, it's armor.
Oh.
We could salvage it, too.
I know, but do we want Ulf to survive more is the real question.
It could be good.
Because I feel like someone would be like the War Mage is Thirsty who has the fucking mace, but Ulf needs some armor.
That's fair.
Do you want to give it to Ulf?
Yeah, why not? He can be a little bulky boy.
Oh, it fits. I love it.
The Sunstar Sash.
Stun chance, man. Drifty?
Yeah, I mean, Drifty would get the highest from it.
Oh, that looks nice on him.
Yeah.
Snazzy boy. The dust settles, the air smells acrid and burnt. You can control that thing, I hope.
This arm? Yeah,
Can you talk for a second, Udley? Are you some kind of fire goddess now? Or spirit touched?
Alright, so I really did hear something, right? Whatever presence was there in the altar, the flames. It spoke in me more than to me, like the chorus of my primal ancestry. Interesting. I heard them offer stories to the altar. Son of the Summer, the Queen of Embers, the Sun Thief, and the Empire of Ashes were softer stories, like that little yarn about the sky and the Tree of Fire.
Interesting. So she's just like
Olig.
hot. She is hot now.
Yeah. Watch out the pyromancy though, Yang might turn you into a web browser. God damn it!
I mean,
Becoming water
there's also
Firefox.
There's also Water Fox. So
Yeah, I was about to say Water Fox for some reason when I was thinking of Firefox.
Water Fox is a port of Firefox that has even more customization.
Oh yeah, I knew about it. I was just like, the reference of Firefox was in my brain and I started saying Water Fox.
Besides, they're more of just a weather thing, so hey.
I heard them, these flame...
Oh, whoops.
It's okay.
I thought you
I don't think I did yet. I heard them, these flame keepers, people who drove their herds and built their shelters here. Poured out their mysteries by this altar they must have carved and... I know it looks startling, but it's kind of, like, alluring, right? Also, I mean, who wouldn't fall in love with the Fire Maiden of Gardsbury? You already have a bitch, Udley.
I mean, here's the one thing, do not offer your fish boyfriend a hand job now with your hand.
You're
Like
gonna
the
steam
grab
him,
onto.
no! He's gonna get steamed!
Guy just comes out with just like an ice pack on it, and you just like look and it's just all like grilled on his thighs.
I think it's gonna melt off, it's water, it's steam. Maybe we fucked their romance.
No, it just makes it even more dangerous, which is what they're into.
Oh, I see.
Well, fine. Keeping you at arm's length is no longer enough, I guess. You can immolate yourself slowly if you like, but make sure the others can still count on you.
Emma, calm down. Is she scared of me?
Look, Yunthai is just a hipster. She's hipster grandma.
I love her hair just full. You're not going to tell me off, are you? Oh, you're speaking.
Where would we be if none of us took risks? Also, you're talking about how her hair is just floating constantly.
It is, look at it. It's just floating there. It's like it's on her weapon.
Remember how... it's the emotional support beard for her bow. Remember how we said it was like she just took a little bit of scotch tape and she
and she taped it on, yeah.
Amazing, I love it.
Now she has heat to keep it nice and sweaty, I guess.
I guess.
Yes.
Let's do the scouting.
Here.
Yeah.
Just don't like lingering here, alright? These places age you.
Wait.
Oh wait, did I do the wrong one?
No, you did the wrong one. You didn't find an item. You did the settlement.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, it's fine. We can have it so that they go to Hawkland Reach or Hawkland Weaver Works to defend it.
Yeah, not
It's okay,
bad.
it happens.
I'm gonna get
Anyway.
scalded, it's over.
Let's go. Why do deepest always have to be so deeply underground? Fern, say that again, but slower.
She's trying her best. I think they do it just to annoy you. I love Ugly. Oh, it is. Hey, come check this out.
Man, I just would be like they're like siblings, but no, that'd be a bad idea to say the Polycule.
What'd you find? I'm not sure. Whatever they are, they're blocking the way forward. They look like eggs.
I was gonna say that, but they also look like just other stuff.
I mean, it looks like larva eggs or something creepy.
Yeah. Mushrooms? Are you seriously worried about some fungus?
The mushrooms are deadly. Look close. I hate his little goofy ass fucking that he always has. Skull!
As they watch, a small creature scurries past them into the cluster of fungi. What's that smoke?
I think it's spores. I don't know. Back up.
The cloud envelops the creature, which struggles briefly then lies still. Maybe we should go around?
Can't risk touching those puffballs. We would have to be very careful. We don't have time. Who knows where those other tunnels lead? We saw the deepest go this way. 55, 55. We trust Drifty and his himbo, or do we trust Fern and her tree man? She doesn't have to worry about dying now. She's old.
Oh yeah, she's young, but even then, I think she's just functionally immortal. If she dies, she dies. Like, I'm completely immortal! What's your weakness? Oh, if I hit this one exact spot, I'm dead.
I know the spot.
Which way do you want?
Let's trust Fern.
Fern? Come on, there's a side passage this way.
Way does seem easier. Are we going in circles? I swear I've seen that stalactite twice already. Of course Drifty would notice that.
Yeah. How can you tell? It all looks the same. I'm joking, you all need to learn to trust me.
Very funny.
Shh. Look.
The deepest. You found them. And they don't know we're here.
Oh.
Good job, Fern. I'm sorry I doubted you. Damn, they're smiling.
Let's get them. So we did win. +7 accuracy. Jeez.
Polycule buff. They're all smiling.
+7 gay.
For real. Okay, how do I...
Alright, trying to smack him with a stick. Alright, I can dazzle. Dazzle. Dazzle.name.
Damn.
Alright, I'm gonna kill the slinger.
Damn. Oh my god, Fern, calm down.
Fern's a beast.
9 damage is a lot. That's like half of an endgame boss in a base campaign.
Oh great, the chosen. Hold on, let me just kind of smack him with a stick.
Jesus Christ. I'll kill him by constriction. Wolf's kinky.
Man, choked just the way that many people want to go.
Go Drifty. Oh, I can't open the door. He's fucking slow.
On top.
Bam.
And I'm going to misfall.
There might be a bone lance angle here, I think.
You can hit one.
Yeah, I can hit both. There you go. Yay!
Yay!
Oh, there's more.
Okay, oh, yep. Go Fern.
She's stomping up.
Yeah,
Oh, she's invisible, right?
Yep, misfall. It's that good shit.
Moved him in. Right next to Fane. I wonder if she'll get an attack of opportunity if he moves past. No.
No, that's a skill that she
Right, right, Guardian. Right.
Dirty has that because the cat.
Forget about that. Where the fuck did he get the cat again?
The one tower event thing where the
Right.
shadow cat.
Wait, I'm used to having the shadow cat, not like the actual cat.
Yep. Hey,
Olaf levels up!
Ooh, Fern's nearly leveled up too.
Yeah, she's almost at 3. You know what, you can be tanky, Olaf. Become a little chubby, you get hardiness. I'm not reading the rest.
Ulf gets swole.
Or rope.
Rope!
Are we giving rope to them, someone, or are we getting rid of it? I don't think we need it.
Let me check Thirsty real quick. She has a one-handed weapon, yeah. We
If
could
you want
give
to,
it
we
to Thirsty.
can. If you want to.
Thirsty gets rope. Oh,
Her and Ulf are
she
gonna
looks
have rope.
Great.
Oh no.
He looks great with the flail of the rope. Ooh.
Punk. Um... Maybe Thirsty or Drifty.
I'm gonna suggest Ugly because she's actually gonna be not doing much range stuff anymore.
Okay. The Ugly it goes. Ugly Dudley.
Ugly.
Could push farther, but I wanted to get good rest. Sure, this is fine.
Fire doesn't need to be big, does it?
Not big, no, just cooking size.
Oh, sure.
Name. Wait.
That's blue. Look,
right. It's okay, I'm dumb. Hi, Oasis. Calm Night comes after battle. How many times has it been like this? How many times will it be so again? Oh. Stars collect where the sky slopes to. Water collects on leaf, on web.
I just noticed what's called it's bones and crows and nightly things. Oh,
Are they gonna
Are they gonna bone? In case you're wondering, yes, you do look like a wishful moper.
Someone cares, I'm sure. When you talk your belittling way, all I hear is a worried woman.
Jeez, dude.
All nightly things have a place. Some seek light, or shed it, and others wear the dew in dark. Silence. A decided on silence is always a fine thing. It will come, and dreadful work be needed, ever as it was the day gone by.
No, Lexi Point.
Oh, maybe if he wasn't gay.
Yeah.
Forgot he's gay.
Yeah, we did make him gay.
Poor Olaf, he hasn't had anyone. He's alone. He doesn't even have a cat.
Should we send them to deal with the infestation?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Was it patrol? Send a party clear the infestation of the town. Yes. Go. Then we can build stuff.
Yeah, the others I forgot.
You're fine.
Secured.
It happened.
Oh wait, it does say a thorough delving. I think I might have done the item.
Oh. Heartwoods, ingots, spell threads.
Yeah!
Cool. Okay, speed. Well, who would benefit most from this? Ugly would get 7.
Damn, that makes Udley zooming. Holy shit, Udley.
Thirsty can get 5 speed if you want to give it to Thirsty, but there's Ugly, Yuntai, and Thirsty.
Could make Udley the fastest bitch alive.
Fast as fuck.
Fire fuck.
Fast as
Fire fuck.
Alright, then I guess we could send these 3 to just... Oh, shit.
Find an item, I guess.
How do I escape?
Oh.
Okay, no, I'm escaping that. I'm going to send...
Are we sending these 3 to Musty Eagle?
Yeah,
What they called me? They called me the Musty Eagle.
Alright, let's send those 3 there. Because then they can do the stuff.
You want to, right before like the last part of the chapter, take a quick bathroom break and stuff?
Yeah,
I was figuring we're getting one soon, so I was just thinking, because we're not worrying about ads.
Right. I forgot about this. We could prepare against incursions and take defenses if we wanted to.
Right, I forget about that.
Do you want to set up some defenses here in the Weaververse?
Sure.
Alright. Now the real question is, tier 2, tier 1, or tier 3?
Yes, tier 2.
Alright. It does
I don't
take
think we
less
need that big of defenses.
time. Yeah, it's only
Chapter 2.
yeah, it's 20 days to complete instead of 30, which is good. All right, send them in.
They actually start on it, or did they just? Well, it doesn't look like it's filling.
Current defense is tier.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it
see.
says they're doing the
Oh,
job.
okay, there you go. Oh, I think that just sent the other team there.
Uh,
I think they're swapping spots.
What? Hold on.
I think we can't go back. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, fuck. Calamities, your enemies have advanced their plan. Well, fuck.
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's only normal difficulty.
Hold on. Cancel their orders.
Hey, smite.
Why are you... You know what? Let's just see if we'll find an item.
This really wants us to do this.
Okay. Okay, yeah, it's just them. There we go.
Okay.
I was just being stupid.
Yeah, and then after these resolve, we could probably quick bathroom break if we want, because I think we have 2 zones left.
Do you want to send these 3 down there, and then, like, when they
Yeah,
do this, we can just
yeah.
use the bathroom? Okay. Send them down.
Send them down.
Send them.
In a minute or two, we're gonna take a quick, like, probably 5-minute break or something, I think.
Yeah.
Make sure to grab water and stretchy during it.
Who gets the gravel pelt sash? Warm sheepskin to girdle the hips.
Why sheepskin?
Ugly, Oaf, Thirsty, and just those 3 would benefit the most from it with the armor.
We could give it to Olaf and keep up his tank arc.
Get him swoller. Oh, he looks so good with that.
Yeah, he's cute.
Oh, we are fashionscape. Anyway, let's go be right back, I guess.
Okay, I'm gonna send this to BRB really quick. Make sure to take a quick
Alright.
break, guys. BRB.
peanut butter cookie.
We're back! We AFK'd, Yang turned huge, and I was stuck behind her.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It was stinky.
I can't control it all the time.
It was stinky, it stunk back there.
I'm gonna hurt you.
It was a stinky sweatsuit.
A sweatsuit?
I don't know, I'm making fun of your outfit.
It's a tracksuit.
Sweatsuit.
A sweatsuit is something else.
I know. Called I'm being a brat, it's like my personality.
Yeah.
We sending these three over here too? Or
Or
are we waiting?
That wouldn't activate the story, so let's go. Yeah. Send them.
Give paper. No, my paper. Gang, can I have paper?
No. I know what we're gonna do with it. No. You don't.
Wow.
No. No paper.
Fucked up.
It is, because I know you're gonna eat it.
That's like my personality.
I'm sorry, we don't have that. We have only very few precious school supplies for you. Okay?
I'm gonna eat a little bit.
No.
It's my sheep nature, it's not my fault.
It is. You were born this way.
I was born to eat paper.
Anyhow. Let us go.
Mm-hmm.
Olaf, what's the situation up ahead?
You have to see this yourself. Come with me.
Oh.
They're friends.
Friend. They're living side by side with Morthagi.
Who's doing random NPC?
I'll do them. I'll do friends!
Whoa!
Isn't the view from here great? You can see everything for miles around! Say, you two look tired and hungry. Why don't you all come along and join us for dinner? We do a huge communal feast every night, and there's always plenty.
They're communists from the robots.
They're cults. They're in a cult.
Wow, I'll drain.
Yeah.
I guess we're splitting the NPCs, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Or we could switch around.
Sure, I'll do NPCs. I got them. Hi, friends. Welcome to Musty Hobble.
Hi, thanks. Yeah. Okay, that's just creepy. Split up, enjoy the party, but stay on guard. This feels off. Later. Well?
Something weird is going on. Everyone is just so happy.
Isn't that a... Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're right. You can do it. It's okay. The bounce
Okay.
back one. Isn't that a good thing? I just saw a woman cut herself by mistake, and everyone just laughed, including her. Maybe it's something in the food.
Oh, come on. I just finished eating.
Did you two check that out yet?
What is it?
No clue, but it looks like some sort of energy is flowing in and out of it. Oh.
Zeph Brock.
Am I doing him or are you doing him?
Who do you want to do?
I got him. Welcome, strangers. I see you found the Merrymaker. What does it do? Why, it provides the townsfolk with unlimited happiness. At what cost? Oh, nothing big, just a tiny bit of their life essence, siphoned off to power the machines. Now then, don't look so horrified. They all knew the price going in. I have signed contracts. Let me guess, signed in blood. Oh, he even has the evil sneer, the guy.
What do we do? Do we let them go with reality?
Do we want Ulf to go on a vindictive spree and have his emo teen moment?
It's well past it, but he never got to have it when he was younger, and he is holding the rope.
Look at his hair swoop. I mean...
Yeah, he has the whole one eye covered thing, too.
I still do that.
Oh my goodness. So what do we do?
Let's do Ulf, I guess. Let's free them.
Which Ulf? There's freeing
Oh,
them, but also coming back later.
let's just go for it now. Just raw fight it. He seems like he'd be
No.
angry and throw fit, right?
We're going in raw.
I was sipping. Sorry you feel that way.
I'm sorry, you don't feel this way.
He doesn't like going in raw.
Zefrock Hughes, 71-year-old mystic. Oh.
Oh boy, do you see his bone crossbow arm?
That is cool though, but we have to murder a dude.
Oh, this is what happens when you care about people. Hope it's worth it,
Wait a
Ulf.
moment. You can hear gears in the background. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a big area. Okay, we don't have to worry about it. I'm going to go up here in Guardian.
Might. Maybe we just have Drifty stealth for now.
Yeah.
Them come out and look at Ulf. Oh my god, they're trying to light him on fire. Trying to cook him because of all his armor. What's a good
He's
thing?
interfusing with the fireplace up there.
Yeah.
She's gonna go up here and punch some things.
Damn it.
This will just one-shot this.
Jump.
Or, yep, there we go. Because it smacks him back.
Bam.
Nice job, Drifty.
He's drifting. You just got like upchucked on.
Well, they are sommelier. It's like poisonous wine.
Haha, you just got upchucked.
You know what, Fern? Fern is out of actions. Oh, no, she's not. It's just saying that she is. Punch. Bye, sommelier.
Yeah. Drifty
Aw.
sucks.
Drifty needs more accuracy.
Trying his best, but he's not succeeding. Trying your best and you don't succeed. Ow. They both said no.
Okay.
Dude, it is so hard to see right there with the lighting. I don't know what it's doing,
There
but
he
it is
is.
blinding.
Did you just try to discus me when you couldn't move? I'm gonna move back here.
Dude, the lighting is like blinding on my screen back
It
here.
hits here too, jeez.
Oh my
There's
god.
so much fire.
What? Nice.
Okay.
Now it's just us versus him. He only has 5 HP.
This guy is just gonna get smacked.
Do you have someone else with him? No. Oh, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, but he's
Oh! Ulf just said fuck you, old man.
dead. Yeah.
Damn, he's vindictive. Nice!
Ulf knew better.
Level 3 fan.
Alright, let's see. Raider. Switch after Fern can start a fire on the edge of tower. Break a piece of adjacent scenery, dealing 2 damage to all foes. No. Once per turn as a combat action, Fern gains 3 armor and 2 warding to herself or a nearby ally for 2 turns.
That's pretty
fucking
good.
Cool. If Fern ends her turn by moving, she will automatically enter Guardian. Oh.
Very nice.
Paladin.
Frame the paladin, eh? She fucked a tree and then she's like, that's my deity.
Yeah. Star Slate Ring. Actually, all 3
thirsty
of them will-
maybe? Because it'll bring her up to 2.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That looks pretty cool on Thirsty with the giant red ring. I like that.
Pretty pretty. Oh, we have one more adventure in us.
Thirsty Gut Puncher. Do you want to do that, or shall we send...
We could probably send Ulf and Fern over and have Drifty build it.
Yeah, sure, so Drifty will just build. What do we want?
Maybe double down on Hide, since I think it's the most versatile, I'm assuming, for us.
So...
It just
Ulf is gonna be doing
Drifty.
Oh,
It's just Drifty, right? Because then we could send our... We could have the 2 casters over there for whatever we're fighting.
Yeah, and then... Fern...
Realistic scenario.
Yeah, Fern...
I mean, that felt like a book plot with, like, the happiness machine and everything. Oh.
Fern and Drifty have an absurd bet? Hold on.
Okay, Fern and Drifty, what are you up to? Thank you for the link.
You lost! You're at a festival! Oh, you look lost. You're at a festival?
Yeah. Oh, no. I don't know what's wrong. I just can't seem to feel the spirit. Spirit. Worrying, I suppose.
Yeah, well, you don't have to stay.
But, I'm still trying to do my part, community spirit.
Right, yeah. Oh, I get it. You're itching for a dice game. Later.
It looks so where are they going?
That was rather dull, okay?
I was lucky. Honestly though, do you have a secret? I've never seen someone roll that well.
Loaded dice. No secrets. I get on these streaks sometimes. Cards, dice, coins, but now that you mention it, I've always wondered what would happen if we were just to pick a different direction.
A direction?
Just pick a direction and go. If I'm really on a hot streak, well, I bet you'll find a real magic item somewhere.
Magic item? Seriously?
Do we let them go?
Yeah, I think they should. Why not?
Alright.
For a new pair of socks.
Oh.
Oh. So they need someone with them. I mean, they should be... If we can give them Ulf... Yeah, I bring Ulf back.
Okay, let's go.
Let the trio go.
Oh, they're going all the way to the observatory. Fuck.
Oh, well, they're going on an adventure. Do we give them time, I guess? I mean, we have time.
Yeah, we could do a patrol here.
Yeah, because we have like 100 days, so...
Yeah. So, Thirsty, Ugly, and Yunthai will patrol.
The women!
Women.
The women and the men plus Fern!
Has been cleared of an infestation. Well, I guess we could just let them go and then just travel back.
Yeah, I suppose so. They're about to get there.
What we could do, since it would take a while, we could send these 3 to Musty Eagle Pit, and that's such a weird name. And then, like, build defenses if we want.
Hey, that works. Musty Eagle Pit, that's what they call me.
No. So tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3?
Tier 2, I guess, and we have the time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not too bad. 45 days total. 15 days remaining for... Oh, it's only 15 days for... It'll take 23 days.
Okay,
They could just wait. Yeah, or do that. I don't care either way. I think both are good.
They're gonna be here for a moment.
Yeah.
The story continues. I see the edge of the forest.
But this forest has an edge. That's nice.
Man, so do you, with your personality. Of course it does. Everything has limits.
Including my patience.
Oh my gosh.
Look, it was a joke in the first place, wasn't it? Keep walking until we find a what? A magic item? What even is that? Nice to take a little trip, but the trip's no longer little. Come on, Fern. Time to go back to our lives.
Alright, but we can at least check out the castle first.
that look of us staring down at the ground. What do you mean?
Like, oh, there's a castle now. Dude's just done with everything.
He just wants to go home with his cat.
Where there's presumably a magic item. It's like an anime opening. Call me Drifty. He's just so pissed.
He's so done with everything.
Oh my gosh.
Let's let Fern just go right in, right? She's happy,
Yeah.
she's living.
She's leading the charge. Be honest though, you thought this whole thing was crazy and over particular.
No, yeah, I absolutely did.
Uh-huh. The dim halls are broken and falling in. Their steps scuff dust off the stones.
Excuse me, Mouse.
No.
See straight through the upper floor.
So if we went in the window up above, we would have just fallen in.
Mm.
Bing! Aha! Up. Empty.
Hey, that's life, isn't it? You know, I'm glad we stuck this out now about the bet.
Oh my gosh. What happens to the winner?
Loser buys them nice socks, but I'll be lenient if...
Interesting. Well, I'm afraid you spoke too soon, Soxy, because there's always a second best. Soxy and the Polycules are a terrible title. I feel like with Drifty Socks, we would just like stand them up when we take them out of his room.
Oh no. Why wouldn't there be?
Kirk. Oh.
The big boy.
Big boy.
I haven't seen this one, I don't think.
This is one of the more thoggy. It's big more thoggy.
A mini boss
like
one? Oh, Batchby.
mini
Oh,
boss.
Batchby, okay.
Yeah. Noisy as an animal tossed down a stairwell, it rolled smoothly back to its feet with each stumble. Well, I can smack them.
I'm gonna hit the Spectec, yeah.
Alright.
We can just have the big boy. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, you're already beating the shit out of him, pissing him off,
Yeah.
so...
Watch
it to
out,
one
I
on
can run through people.
Right.
Like, literally run through people.
He's clamping Fern. He's giving her the clamps.
Smack.
Yeah.
Nope. 10% chance to hit. Great ol' XCOM.
He told you no.
Mm-hmm.
Strict him. Shoot him, Drifty.
Uh-oh.
He's just gonna say hi to you. See?
No.
Fine.
Smack. Okay, we're good.
There we go. Damn, you knocked his corpse till it's off.
Yeah. Fern is just hitting people with a stone mace. Mmm, bone in hand. That's what I'm craving.
This guy's done.
Oh, well, time to see who really won the bet.
Must we?
Sore loser. Flip.
The horrified expression. Oh.
Fortune
Wow.
Girdle. Stunt chance, dodge,
That
or
goes
block.
to Fern, right? Because this is her little gambit and like...
Oh my god. But do we give it to Drifty because he is a good sport about it?
Make Fern pretty OP. 62 dodge is nice, so they both get 62 dodge.
And it fits her.
I think we give it to her.
Yeah, it fits Fern.
She's...
A short while later.
I don't really get it.
Don't get what?
I don't know how to say it.
Since I don't know when, maybe all my life, things tend to break my way. Not always, but I recognize it's abnormal. You know, little stuff usually. It's the small spur of a moment kind of coincidences, like fucking a tree.
I just slide perfectly in the place.
Oh boy, like the tree did. Right.
No, he just shot his sap and he was done. He was quick. He saw a woman, he's like... and then he's done. Right, well, I owe you a pair of socks, I suppose.
And they better be new this time. Drifty, I don't want your crunchy socks. Oh, she's a bronze horn warrior.
Give her bigger reach.
Oh, with all attacks and abilities, that's fucking
Inspiration's cool too.
When I'm reading Thundering Tales, which combat is a swift action Fern frightens the enemy, forcing them to spend their next turn running away. Oh.
Those are honestly pretty good. Quest complete plus 10 retirement age. Oh.
When is her retirement age?
I don't know, because of her cloak. It says she ages slower, but I don't know if she actually does. I don't know if we can look when we're in here. Oh, we can. Pet pine cone. I love the pet cone. Fern is taking on a pet pine cone spirit creature thing.
Where's the retirement age? Is it in stats? Retirement age 50. Well,
36. She's got 14 more years in her.
Yeah.
We still have a good time. Inspiration, I suppose. That should go the whole campaign.
Yeah.
We have 3
Inspiration is
chapters, I think.
True. Long reach is good though.
Both are nice.
Yeah, long reach it is.
Hell, I
So
think we're actually gonna end up finishing the day, it seems like.
Yeah, so we can send everyone here.
Yeah, may as well.
Let me just make sure it's not these 3, so because they're gonna go defend soon.
Yeah.
Actually, no, wait.
No, we canceled that, I think.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, worst case, we can choose our 5 to send in the big battle.
Yeah. Alright. Who do we have fight?
I feel like everyone but Yuntai, because it's like her, she's old, right?
Yeah.
Let her rest up. She was our extra character, she did disappear.
Yeah.
Well, her and Drifty? Her and Drifty, I think.
No, it was that we made Thirsty the one
Oh, right.
Took
Right.
Fern and everyone else, but then it's like I took Fern, Yuntai, and Thirsty then.
40 watch streak. Holy crap. That's a lot of watch.
The grill.
It's a
Now
cute
then.
gamer girl.
Let's a fucking go.
The woman, that's a grill. It's crazy.
Let's fucking go.
I'm
Hills and altar and over the darkness whirls.
looking.
That's fucking good. Oddly, we don't have to do it tonight.
Kind of do. Tonight won't end on its own.
Alright, stealth or haste?
Which one feels more Polycule? This Polycule. I feel like they'd rush in like idiots, but...
Yeah. We have our murder hobo squad.
Dummy! You're dumb,
Dummy
I'm dumb, they're dumb.
Oh, Sun Eaters.
Oh, yeah.
Metal as fuck for
Yeah, I don't think I've seen those. Those are crazy. I'll interfuse to that and discus with a wolf. Bam,
I'm gonna-
bam.
I'm gonna send in Fern because she has that good old reach.
But we get a big
Oh.
ol' mash of people here.
You know what? They'll murder this guy nearly.
Oh wait, I might be able to just finish him with Udly, I think.
And if I use Thirsty...
Udly! Damn it.
Come on, Utley.
You're supposed to be cool like a Pokemon. I even said a name for her.
Go, Utley!
Bam! It's just
Oh,
one
this is
small horn child.
I'll introduce the flame and then...
Kill the kid!
Burn!
Kill the child.
Dead.
Oh my god.
Big.
That's a wood.
Maybe?
That's a wood for me.
Look, I don't know if I would want to. I'm not sunny, I'm nighttime. Oh, there's another Sun Eater!
Oh, it's probably spawning more and more until we get to it.
Alright, so... We can kill the ads first with the deepest. I'm going to send Fern up and then smack the kid.
Sounds good. I'm killing the top row.
Actually, wait. Yeah, she still has reach. Okay.
Oh yeah, she does.
Alright, for reach.
I could have Udly set up a firewall.
I'm gonna have to
You
move
want-
Fern here and interfuse again.
Okay. I'm gonna set up here. Make our firewall. Damn it, Udly.
They dodged.
And Udly is not Poggin.
No.
You might be able to discus those 2 up above us. Or... Oh, it's right there.
Oh,
Ooh, nice.
nice.
It spawned another. Okay, no, it didn't spawn another one. I thought it did. I wish more games let you use a sling.
Yeah?
Slings are cool.
Because so few people realize how fucking dangerous they can be.
Oh my god, Udly just got
Oddly's gonna
fucking.
need to move.
Oh
Oddly's
my
nearly
god,
dead.
Udly.
Oddly, no. Okay, Fern.
Adley has Silk Step, it's okay. Let's run her away. And, like, Silk Step.
Come on and slam and welcome to the jam. You bitch.
Also, I could just do this. Adley! Oh,
Ugly.
he's really not popping off.
Okay.
Rock. Rock.
Nice.
Clear in the way for her. We'll get her home. Nice.
Okay, that's good. Actually,
You have the Slinger and the Sun Eater on top. You might be able to like do a bounce with that pillar up there. The discus up top.
maybe. But what if I do? Yeah, probably better. Oh.
Big hit.
Oh, yeah.
He
more.
tried to touch you with his like shadow tendril. Don't that.
Smack. You guys suck.
I'll go for the Slinger up top.
I'll fire release shit to this guy.
Hey, so we have one more. Just waiting there. But yeah, the thing's kinda hot. He has that weird like eternal void mouth that's like a swirly abyss.
I'm wondering so many things of like, what is your line of when you would stop the monster fucking?
It was pretty far. Thought we have
Mine
a
was
chin.
relatively far too, but still.
Mine's probably thought we have a shed. Drifty, watch out! Oh, it spawned another.
Oh, we have to actually destroy the altar. Okay.
Ew. I'm gonna stealth Udley because she's on low HP.
Guardian. Thirsty, get your Patukas down here.
Wait, I can interfuse with the altar and use it.
Oh?
Wait, no, I can't. Damn it.
I can.
Oh, you can? It just didn't look like it had any abilities.
It doesn't, from what it seems, but I can do.
Bam! Nice. Welcome back, friend.
Now we're dropping that flame.
Drifty got a hit, and Drifty, just don't die. Okay, nice. They all hate
No, they're
Fern.
coming after Fern. Nope, they're coming after. Okay, Ulf.
Game's fun, yeah. I think we're about to win the second chapter.
Yeah. Hey, it's me. You're Fern.
Yeah.
So with the rope, I can pull in teammates.
Yeah. Can you pull Drifty across the way?
Maybe. Hold on. Oh, did not mean to interfuse. Rope aid? No, I had to be closer for Drifty.
Hmm.
So what if I...
Idly, get up there, you bitch.
What if I move and can I rope aid? No. No.
Guess I might as well move the boys in.
Boys are back in town. Boys are back in town.
But yeah, my monster fucking does go pretty far. That's a big discussion. Get up.
We actually have to attack the scenery.
That's a pretty big hit.
Move up, Thirsty. All that fire over there is going insane.
You can't fucking shoot the scenery, I wouldn't let him. That's so dumb.
That knife hit.
Hopefully one of them doesn't spawn right now.
Nope, there
Oh.
it is. This
Let's
guy's
just-
in for a rude awakening. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
He just got ganked. Good job, Drifty.
There we go. Seems like it does it every other turn, so you can just... Yeah.
There you go. Hmm.
Goodbye,
Yay! We beat chapter 2.
EXP.
Fern is such a high level. It's the highest level I've seen. Oh, it's a sword.
Oh, she'd lose her freaking...
Do we give Ulf a sword instead of his sounding rod?
I don't know!
Or Drifty? I don't know. Technically a better weapon than Fern's, but Fern's has the knockback. Oh yeah, Ulf would lose spell damage.
We could always salvage it for an ingot.
We could make Utterly melee and just get rid of her bow.
Yeah, you know what? I like that idea. What do you want to call it?
I'm gonna hit this random button a bunch of times. Actually, I got one.
Oh, dear.
Don't worry, I'm fine.
Sure.
Wait, I lost it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the game is good though.
Good fun game.
It's not the fucking sounding rod.
Here, fine.
What'd you call it? I'll have to see after the end of this chapter.
Was I brown or
Yeah,
you?
you can take it.
The altar here is just a heap of dry wood, clinking crystal. The thick murk of night is suddenly parted by sun, like a swan splitting the water. It flashes white and arrests the eye. Never knew how much I'd miss it. Oh wait.
I thought that was someone else. I thought that was someone else.
It's okay, it's easy to get lost.
There's kind of feeling here, right? Not a bad one.
Nothing here is meant for evil. I feel sure that it's stuff of the elder witches, the warlocks, and hill mages. A big angry sun. Me too.
Maybe you should not stare at it, Ulf.
That's me, Ulf. They worshipped things our ancestors. They called on voices to whom we're now strangers. I don't know enough, but I knew these altars, shrines, hollows. They once had purposes and places in daily life. Just shame to see them twisted.
Amazing.
You leave the wreckage there, all the runewood spoiled and the mystic rocks dispelled. Seasons will sort these things back into the ground. It'll be a bright road they follow the rest of the summer.
It's a beautiful thing, we win.
Chapter over!
11 years of peace follow.
Wahoo!
We have made all the save tiles. We've gotten 2 towns. Your victories undermined them. We now get cut call taken off, but we can also... Yeah, we can do that, but whatever.
Again.
They've been weakened.
Hi, Lucky. Welcome in.
Winding trail is often called Ulf Away from Life. Oh, read along with leader.
Oh, yeah, I have that on. Oh, wait, oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
He'd rest in sun-dappled glades and on grassy knolls, places where the heroes in old stories were apt to have faithful encounters, but he never met anyone himself. He has fucking gray, like,
He's
highlights in
he's
his
kinda
hair.
hot now.
Dude gets hotter as he's older.
At least spent a month tracking a golden stag. Finally raised her weapon for the kill. The stag looked her straight in the eyes and laughed. Adley went home with a prize greater than any set of antlers.
When Jerky came down with a case of thistlethroat, Fern would come by to feed the pigs and handle the soup pot. How many ingredients are in this thing? It must be really sick.
Are they...
It's the hangover cure.
Are they gonna...
Nope, no boating.
Oh man, when days were bright and beautiful, Thirsty planted saplings. She dreamed of one day bringing her love to sit in the shade of the trees she'd fostered. She has no love!
She has many loves, but she's more of flings. Ulf enjoyed spending time with the researchers of Broken Melon Artery. They were dedicated enough at their work that they didn't incessantly try to chat him up.
So shallow. Entei finally scraped the sadness off the inside of her heart and poured it in the songs. Sing them sometimes to bees and mossy logs. She's crazy.
Amazing. Yantha has retired. She's no longer in your party, but she'll go into your legacy and may play a part in the future stories.
I wonder if we both get the characters from this or if only the host does. It's my curiosity.
Maybe.
Be cool. Oh, we got 3 legacy points. In the years leading up to her retirement, Yantha grew happier. Day by day, the weight of the world seemed to lessen, and she recited poems, passing her knowledge on to those who were called to listen. Who benefited most from Yantai's wisdom?
All who read her tale.
Everybody. Oh.
Oh, do we allow the transformation? No offhand items.
Feel bad we just gave her a sword, but we could. She could just keep going. I think it's kind of cool.
Do we want that?
I mean, it's kind of cool. She can just go in and punch.
Does she have an infinite use of that?
Yeah.
Fuck, let's do it. Alright.
Look
So
at her only
Elfie can
gear
only,
be.
only armor.
Yeah.
Uh,
We can make some tier 2 now, it looks like.
we can.
Should probably get Drifty a
still has
good
the starter
bow.
equipment.
Yeah, did we get him a better
Drifty-
bow? We can make tier 3 melees. Oh.
I say we at least get Drifty a good bow or something. A bow armor.
We could upgrade Tharian's weapon to rank 3.
Oh, hold on.
That's a
Big
strong
ol'
weapon.
fucking bomb stick.
That's pretty cool.
Do you want that?
I'm down. I think it'd be cool.
Fuck yeah.
Who needs
Fucking-
armor?
I need a good name for it.
Could say make it Duncloven. Big upgrade. Jeez. I know you're gonna give this shit the goofiest name.
Hold on. There we go. Okay, what did you name? What did you name the thing? Because it got rid of it.
Oh, I named it a hot soothing sounding rod.
Amazing. Okay, let's give Drifty some stuff. Drifty needs some defense.
Yeah, he needs some gear. Poor homie. The hasping at the bottom is kinda cute.
Ooh.
It's very, like, roguish.
Kind of like Geralt a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that I vote on that. Less block, but he keeps the speed.
Yeah.
Costs 3 legacy points to get the second one if we want that. Oh.
We could use it on a bow for him instead.
How about
We have
this?
22 left. We do have 22 points.
I say we give him more defense. That way he could look fucking great.
Yeah, we
Because
could
it
give him the
matches
tier
his
2. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Okay,
also do have 22 points, and this is the last chapter.
Actually, if you create, I'll let you name it. I want to see what stupid stuff you can come up with.
Okay, I'm naming it.
Also, did you see what I named the maze?
I did.
Huge tracts of land.
I don't think what I want to name it. What do I name? What would I name Funny Armor? I mean, I have to Google something really quick on my phone. Hold on for this pun to work.
Okay.
Okay. Think. I'm giving it a really dumb geeky name. I'm loving with it.
Okay, I'm curious.
Should have crafted now? There you go. It's dumb and tongue-in-cheek, nothing too serious.
Everyone's favorite RPG man.
Everyone loves Geralt. You
Everyone
could
loves
give him like a
Geralt.
tier 2 bow, because it's only 5 points.
Yeah. Well, do we want the normal or the specialist? That's a real question.
That's a long bow if we want to give him a cooler, bigger bow.
What does that one do? It's just extra
more
range and damage.
damage and range, yeah. It's just more specialized, probably, I guess.
Yeah. Make a bow for him.
Okay, we doing tier 2 or tier 1?
Tier 2 bow.
Hey, Drifty's getting fucking geared up. What am I naming the bow? I might name it something heinous. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, I need a good euphemism. Will the random names give me any sort of dumb concept idea of what I'm thinking of? don't have an idea. Shit! You know, sure, this is an edgy name. He can have a bow called the Black Song. Sure.
Oh my gosh.
He sounds like an RPG protagonist.
Let's see what
Can we give a Idly better armor because she's going in melee now? That's a lot of LP though. It's big over LP.
How much would we need? 11. Yeah, no.
I mean, this is all of our LP, right? Because, I mean, like, we're going into the final chapter. We could upgrade Ulf's to tier 2.
Burn can get tier 2 as well.
Burn tier 2 would probably make sense.
I mean, Fur's already just beef.
She looks crazy in that. You should. So pretty in tier 2. We also want to give her a shield.
We could. I'm just trying to think of what else we would want to do.
Yeah, we've leveled up a bit. We're at the end of the second out of 3 chapters, and we're kind of doing our, like, end of chapter, like, gear upgrades. We have this weapon that Yang gave to Fern, huge tracts of land.
Yeah.
And then Drifty got new armor to look like Geralt from Rivia. Geralt.
Okay, wait. Click on Fern's mace and then read what Slam does.
Fern strikes a very huge tracts of land.
Oh my gosh, she strikes them with her huge tracts of land, yes.
Jesus.
Okay,
Because we could probably upgrade Thurn and Ulf's armor, or like Thurn and Thirsty. I assume we're gonna. Whoa, the level 2 armor for Thirsty is cool. I forget she has the armor too.
Right. We
could give her like normal caster. Oh my god, look at the deteriorated Ember Gown. Hello.
Hold on, where is it?
Bottom of the runic.
No.
Oh no, it's the slutty RPG wear for women.
It 100% is.
The Fable Ruiner is really pretty.
I love the Hillthroft.
The Hillthroft.
At the bottom.
Oh yeah.
That one's so good.
Very pretty and fitting. Feral Memory. When Thirsty is below half health, she gains 1 potency.
Not bad, but still. How young is Fern? Fern is still. It said 11 years past, but Fern only aged 4.
I mean, yeah, she's aging slow, and it's also, I think this is their final adventure together, right? So.
Yeah.
I really like at the top of Runic, the tier star 2. The Fable Runic.
So she'd lose out on accuracy and blocks, but she'd get warding, stunt, and spell damage. I say we go for it.
Yeah, I'm down with that. You wanna name it?
Yeah, hold on. I got it.
Is that the great sort of monster hunting?
Hold on.
Everyone does love huge tracts of land. Huge tracts of land. Why can't we put Ulf in that slutty outfit? Wait, it is slutty on him! Damn! Oh, that is wild! His little skinny ass string bean arms.
Okay, there we go. I gave her the Gaelic armor.
Oh, look at Olaf in the fucking deteriorated armor.
Okay, let's see. Which one?
Bottom of Runic, bottom left.
Dude! Conan the Wizard.
Man's built like Flat Stanley. He's trying his best, okay? He's a twink. He's doing his best.
Do we give him Hailclate?
We could. We could also upgrade his wand and then upgrade Fern's armor.
Should we give him the greater sounding rod?
It'd be the greater sounding one. Rod, not wand. Because we have just enough to do that and give Fern better armor.
Yeah, sure, I'm down for it. Call that wand whatever you want. I'm gonna look at Fern's armor.
Okay. Oh my god, I get to name the wand.
The Vibe Scepter. I called it an unforgettable luncheon. What should I call this one? Curious what you'll name it.
I'm thinking of something degenerate.
I think I got a good one for it. I'll wait for you to finish that. I need to see what you named the Sounding Rod's brother.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something goofy.
I think Fern's fully upgraded after this.
I have a dumb, stupid, goofy name. Here we go. Okay, I'm looking at your armor.
Okay, hold on. I didn't name it yet. I'm waiting for the thing to update. Okay, let's see what it's called. Circle Rod, a well-made wand, yeah. Anyway.
He's just, you know, he's just ready.
Okay.
Curve. I thought we just never gave Fern like a proper offhand. She just has a fucking
It's fine, it's fine. She can get a new one later.
I wonder if the pine cone's gonna grow up this arc. Like, she raised the tree's child, and then he shot sap on her face.
She's gonna have another one.
Oh no. Oh, I just saw you did the Gaelic armor. Oh, I thought...
Yeah,
I
the
didn't
Gaelic
even...
armor. There we go. The Grave Clate, also known as Aurora Borealis.
Oh my
at
god.
this time of day, at this time of year, localized entirely on your body,
Aww.
and there's just so much sap.
Oh, and all the sap.
Yeah, there's so... She looks like a freaking air nomad from Avatar with the little thing on her chest.
Oh, he does.
It's
It looks
so
really
good.
cool.
Alright.
He
I say we're
untrapped it.
good. Yeah. Do we keep going?
I'm down to if you are.
Yeah, sure, a little bit more.
Up to you. We could, like... I don't know how it does with, like, stepping away partway through, but worst case we could start it and...
Yeah, let's at least start it, and then we can see, like, what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I'm
oh,
fine.
yeah, I skipped.
It's okay.
Oh,
Make sure read along was later.
Yeah.
Aldi is wrapping up a campfire story.
And maybe there's cause to think I embellish my words, but trust the story here if you trust no other, when the moon is beer foam gold. Yes, when the mood is a gold through circle in summer, then you must hope not to walk between the windows of a town they once called Southboy Sinkhole.
Amazing.
The dust will whip up with its own hungry breath. A shambler will appear in the standing doorway of a missing school. And you will hear a gnawing whisper that swells, forever, forever, forever. So why do we have to go there?
You falling for a ghost story? Come on, Drifty.
Yeah, you know the deal. The old bullheads. Folks in that area say it's been re-inhabited, used as a surface outpost.
Troubling time is always about 10 years from the last. Deepest haunt the strew in rubble of a town that was razed long ago. The dawnlings of the queer lion must unhouse them.
Oh.
The shadows deepen. All monster groups will draw an extra monster card in every battle. Oh, ew!
Yeah. Aurora Borealis in this place in this time of the year?
Yeah.
We could
can
recruit.
recruit someone later.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I think
But
we
we
can
need
recruit.
legacy points.
Right. Yeah, we spent them all. We'll get some. It's all on like the left side of the continent. You never established our tannery.
Fuck, we didn't! That's why we have fewer hides. Damn
We
it.
still can, but...
Oh well. I say we do this for next time. How about that?
That works. Do you want to yap a bit
Save.
before, or do we just want to end here? I'm okay
Yeah,
with
I might
it.
yapping a bit.
We can yap about, something.
Anything?
Yeah.
No.
I can look at my legacy and we can yap about it.
Maybe.
I'm looking at it for myself while we yap. It was only fun.
It was fun, really.
I've been playing a lot of Minecraft lately and like this and Final Fantasy 14. It's been a nice like mix. God, the character designs in this game get so cool. Like I love this character I have
They do,
on
it's
stream.
so good.
He has a hook hand and a one-handed axe.
Fiora Cogs. Fioria Cogs.
I just think the game's such a good play around, fuck around, let stuff happen, like generate like an OC basically game. Like my Autumn character.
It's so nice.
He's Rock. Rock sheep. Rock high. Wait a minute.
Rock solid.
Wait, it looks like she got taller when she got older.
I mean, that's what the rock.
Oh, that's the character. That's the character breathing. You can go up to 80?
Yeah, because
Holy
the Mystics live for a long while. The warriors usually retire first, then
yeah, she is a warrior. Retirement age of 55, age 50.
Meanwhile, freaking, Fern has a retirement age of 45, but she aged at like 1/4 the rate.
I like this girl. She got a cool braid and she had a firearm. She's from the DLC.
Nice.
She has a sword instead of an arm. Yeah, there's an event where you give up an arm for like a rock sword, like a rock thing. And you can have a peg leg. You can have 2 peg legs in this game.
There's all sorts of things that you can get. You can like freaking werewolfed. You can get birded.
Yeah, and mods make the game so much cooler than what I've seen, the bits of them I've seen now.
Like, we're playing with the extra items and armor mods. Those ones are good.
Yeah.
And there's also the elemental beast that you can find that will give you upgrades and such to your weapons.
Yeah, and the elemental
companions.
Like this girl, she had a really cool big beating stick.
The beating stick.
She had like star hair. Yeah, I don't know. I like seeing all the different stuff in here, and it's like if I'm playing on my own, I definitely don't read everything the same way as streaming it with someone on here. It's a lot more, I think, easy to engage and like actually take in the story of someone.
Yeah.
If I'm on my own, I just go, oh, that's cool. That's a cool thing. That's cool. That's neat. Okay. Oh, you can just hit enter and look at your whole hero list if you have too many. Oh, and you can disable characters. Oh, that's neat. Never knew that. Oh god, it even says when you played it. Oh, and it shows you what you accrue. I never knew that. Huh. Interesting. The game's cool, though. You may have fancy wands and sparkly magic, but nothing beats a good old beating stick. So I think you're streaming soon, right?
I will be.
What are you gonna do? Talk about it. What?
I'm just kind of nodding along, just smiling at the nonsense.
But like, what are you gonna do?
I don't know. I'm probably gonna do Holocure a bit. Also, I see the Grill has entered my server, and she has a freaking catapult from Age of Empires 1. Major respect there.
Grill is really cool.
Major respect for you, Grill. Because I fucking love Age of Empires so much, and I could probably kick your ass at it.
I've never known what it was from. I just thought it was a catapult.
No, it's from Age of Empires 1 because you had to like make the siege workshop and everything. I can nerd about that for hours on end because I played that before I went to freaking before I went to elementary school even, actually. I was playing it when I was like in preschool basically, but I didn't have preschool. So just imagine me coming into school and playing like with blocks and everything, making a catapult, and it's like, hey, I bet I can knock down your castle from here. Yeah, it is, because it's a really good catapult, but then it's like they added like all the other siege things, like the organ guns and such.
Organ gun?
Organ gun is a unique unit, basically like each civ has like a unit type
of
the castle. And the Portuguese have that one. Think of like making a bunch of like matchlock rifles in like a cart, and there's like 8 of them.
Gotcha. Okay, cause I was thinking like, oh, that game's like pretty like grounded. So I hear like organ gun, and my brain's like a gun made out of organs. Cause like I went immediately
No,
went high fantasy, and I was like, huh?
let me show you. It's like that.
Fuck. Oh,
Yeah,
it's cool. Hmm.
yeah, it is insane, and the original Da Vinci studies for it.
I'm assuming these are like new models, like the model that girl's using in that. Looking at
Yeah,
it, yeah, that's what I thought. It was like the remake or something, probably. Cause I know they had
yeah.
remakes.
On the left-hand side, there's the HD edition, which was made in 2013, but then on the
Mm.
right-hand side, there's the definitive. Which the definitive just had a
Gotcha.
massive update where if you had it before, you get 3 free DLC. Yay!
Oh, that's cool.
They did up the cost of the base game, though, for those who don't have it.
I mean, I guess that's fair. I guess.
But it is an RTS game, so I don't know how you are with those.
I played Warcraft growing up.
Original Warcraft?
Warcraft 3.
Mm.
Warcraft
Just so you
3, World of
know,
Warcraft, all that.
just so you know, Age of Empires is very much kind of similar, but oh boy, there's a lot of similarities between Civs, but then there's like, all the nonsense.
It's mainly I enjoyed them, but I was always really bad because I never understood like macros or like doing multiple things at once as a kid. And I'm just my like playing Warcraft as a kid. I would like roam the map with a builder with my army and build towers everywhere, thinking I was strategic.
Hmm.
I wasn't smart.
You're good.
I did my best. You like to play as you type Big Daddy into the console, huh?
Oh right. There's cheat codes for Age of Empires, and like each of them, there might be two studio just crashed. Fuck
Big
it did.
Daddy. Oh.
My VTube studio just crashed.
Uh-huh.
I could just leave and never come back.
I can just I was gonna sniff her.
No.
Fun.
But anyway, I'm basically gonna just tell you right now. There's a bunch of cheat codes that you can do for Age of Empires, and Big Daddy gave you a a car, and one of the guys driving it had a rocket launcher in it, and it was just dorky. There was there was also Convert This, which made a priest that would strike with lightning rather than heal or convert other enemy units. There was Black Forest, or not Black Forest, I think it was called that, that gave you stealth archers that would turn into trees,
Huh.
and then they would like turn back when they would shoot and nothing could target them.
Was funny.
The Flying Dutchman, which would launch the like train a ship at one of your docks so that you could ride it on land. It was great. There was also Austin Powers, which gave you a baby on a tricycle with a shotgun for some reason.
I don't get
Yeah.
why that, but I like the nod towards Austin Powers.
Mm. I think it was trying to make like a joke towards Mini Me.
That's what I'm assuming. I'm just wondering why the tricycle. Maybe just thought it was funny. Like one of them was
There
like,
was also E equals MC squared, which would give you a sort of stormtrooper looking dude that would shoot nukes, which had a range big enough to launch across most maps.
he's geeking, guys.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can't do this else you can't stop me.
I'm gonna hurt you. I will bite you and I will not make it hot.
It's okay, social distancing. This is how you collab, right? Other side of the screen.
Yeah, besides screaming and besides flirting with each other, you just do random bullshit.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
I swapped our sides. It's funny. It is fun to hear nerding out.
very much
He's
so.
hardcore geeking.
I will nerd out about everything.
I only geek about MMOs. And Pathfinder 2e.
Meanwhile, me holding up my Obojima book because they just made it for the PDF and everything, so I'm happy.
There's another TTRPG I want to play. The
Which one?
French Room is I think it's. I don't remember the name. It's a Japanese one. It has like dolls. Necronica. That's the name of it.
Ooh.
A friend showed me a really cool friend who plays a lot of niche tabletops and covers them. Got her out because she's cool.
Oh, I might play this with someone because I know someone who will fucking love this.
A really cool person who does a lot of tabletop stuff, because like she's going to show me. I'm a whip. She's a cute little ant lady. I want to say she looks like an ant. Very sweet. She covers a lot of tabletop stuff, and it's almost all like Japanese tabletops or more niche tabletops. She drew her own PNG by hand with like colored pencils. It's very cute. Like her entire channel has like this like cutout paper aesthetic. Like even her like redeems that probably like her lights.
I'm going to have so much fun going over this with someone later because she will fucking love it.
It's a really cool one. There's a specific DLC. Like I know this game too has like some pretty like it's not afraid to slip in the like more like adulty topics and everything. And like there's like a specific module for it where you play as like the evil characters and stuff like that instead of being the good guys. But it's like it's interesting. Like I think enemies are more like squadrons and stuff as opposed to the usual like individual monster and everything. And like you're kind of like super strong people versus groups of enemies, which is cool. It's really cool. It's on my list of like I'd like to play it eventually, but I find DM. I'm always in pain.
Oh, I'm finding so many things.
You're looking at it now and nerding out, aren't you? It's over.
I'm looking at so many other things other than that. Some things that will be great for giving you later because it's silly.
I'm curious. Wait, what? There's a transformation in game. Sorry, you can finish.
You're good.
Oh, I was looking at the Wildermyth workshop out of curiosity. There's a skunk tail transformation.
No!
Improved skunk spray ability.
No!
Stink on them.
No, we're not stinking on them.
There is cool stuff to like play as sea folk and stuff like that that exists in the mods.
Yeah.
I think that stuff's cool. But yeah, I don't know. What were you gonna say though? I know you were just yapping. Sorry.
Sleepy.
Haha, you tired?
Not at this moment.
Haha. Well, there's so many cute subtle mods for this game.
There are many, but still, I want to make some, and I wish my VTube studio won't crash over 10 fucking seconds.
I'm sorry. You want me to beat it up?
No.
Yeah.
I'll beat it up.
But I have horns. I can like stab it.
Mm.
I can like hit the box like bam. Or do you think I cracked one already?
True.
I tried to leave containment. I just ran into a wall and it shattered. It is weird though. This is really random. Like I know, like having a full. It's funny having like a full size model of me all the time because I never used the full size.
Wait, the people that made the doll thing that you just sent for Necronica also made RPG?
Oh, interesting. I think a friend told me that before and I mentioned it. I've heard Made RPG is pretty known. Can you reach the top of the horn? Probably. I think. Well, I can't reach like the pointy one. I can reach the broken one. Too short to reach the top of my horns. There's probably dirt up there. Like microplastics.
Interesting.
She's nerding out so hard on the TTRPG.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at everything.
You're okay, you're okay. It's funny, I don't mind. We're just vibing anyway, so we vibe out for the last little bit of stream. I can sit there and scream and complain about YouTube.
True.
I hate YouTube. Okay, I'm done.
Same. It's like I forgot to hit end stream when I was on YouTube because I was taking a break on freaking Thursday, and they gave me a warning because I actually freaking put on like other stuff.
Oh, because you were
They're like,
watching
"Hey,
it and
we
you didn't
ended your stream
realize.
because you were saying." It's like, look, I was just having a just chatting thing. You never explain stuff.
That's
But
really
hey.
stupid. Yeah, they're in their anti-ASMR arc and I breathed, so they put me in jail. Women can't breathe.
Women can't
Says
do anything
so.
good in this world anymore.
YouTube says that you breathe, you die. It's okay though. I just deal with it. Do you want to get ready to go over to your channel in a second when you're ready? Obviously
Yeah,
not
sorry,
a
I'm just
rush. No,
looking
you're
through
good.
things.
No, you're good. I just know like, we're just vibing out and you could probably screen share it that way and put it up on your channel for people to look at.
Yeah, I will have to restart YouTube Studio. So
That's fair.
will
I'm alone.
I'm just a disembodied flowing head of Colonel
My
Sanders.
tits are so huge.
They're not. Oh shit.
Tits aren't huge.
I disconnected phone.
My tits are small.
They are small compared to mine.
We heard it. My tits are small.
Yep, gotta go bigger. I'm sorry.
I have to go bigger. Oh no, don't tell that to Jeej. She'll do it.
We have to apply the thickening agents.
She'll do it. It's already thick enough. Look.
The thickening
You see it?
agents
Do you
affect
see the
everything.
hips? Do you see these? They don't need to go thicker.
We gotta go thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
Huge tracts of land incoming.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I'll sit down. I'm the only one on screen while we get stuff ready. Let me know when to set up the raid for you.
Alright. Hey, Autumn.
Hmm?
You're a cool bean.
Thank you. You're cool too.
I try to be.
You're pretty okay. I'm getting the raid message ready, but I'm not doing it. I just have like the enter to start the raid timer. Thighs. Yeah, thighs. Cheap thigh. It's like a meal probably.
I'm gonna have so much fun with the freaking Golden Sky stories.
Golden Sky?
Golden Sky Stories is basically a chill RPG that's cute.
Oh, nice. I always like tabletop RPG style RPGs, and those feel hard to like really like play for chat as much as I'd like to often. It's just they can very easily pile on like so much story.
Yeah. Meanwhile, me, I could kidnap you and just have fun.
Oh.
Sheep, 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 sheep.
Yeah. Pointed to myself. I'm so smart.
Are you?
Yeah.
Good. Have faith in yourself.
What's faith?
It's what I have from a lot of people.
Yeah.
What kind of music should I listen to?
Any options?
Maybe.
I always like lo-fi or something chill for streams.
I know, but still, I'm gonna listen to like some other things before I do some other stuff.
I really want to get that other outfit done eventually if I get more for this model soon.
Yes.
I think I showed it before. Showing it up on screen. One scab I got. Very pretty. Like the perfect mix between models.
Ooh.
It was when I asked a scab artist to draw this, and for some reason they designed me a new outfit. Very cute though.
It.
Yeah, it's like a nice mix between the two designs.
Scrunchy is cute too.
Yeah. I like the gloves too. It's very like nice and proper. Like it feels like a nice like Victorian core outfit. Very, very pretty.
I'm getting so many new people on my server. Where the fuck do I know these people from?
We not bots?
No, it was Grill and then someone else. I hope they're not bot, but still.
I always just check PFP, and if it's AI gen, they just nuke out of habit. Hmm. Zoom-in's fine until you get a message about them bugging somebody and you know it's an AI.
Yeah, because they were like that to Ark randomly. It's like, you do not mess with my dog, boy. That's my dog to bully, not yours. There's like 3 of them now. I have so many dogs to bully. And only one of them fights back.
Yeah. Is that what it's like being a teacher? You get to bully people?
Yes, and it's great.
It's weird.
There's Ark, there's Mocha now, there's Annie, there's what's their name? There's Riddle, and then yeah, there's Ark, Annie, Mocha, Riddle. Yes. 4 dog. 4 dog to
A
bully.
lot.
Many dog to bully. I'm very happy I can bully.
I bully my chat and then get bullied. Yeah, when we are done here, whenever Yang's ready, we are just sending you guys over to Yang, like last time.
I am all ready.
You ready? Okay, I'm setting up the raid thing, I'm a bobber. I
Alright.
appreciate everyone for hanging out, it's really fun. Fun playing on here and goofing.
And everyone give Autumn a follow. Oh wait, this is not my area.
Are you gonna shout me out?
I will shout you out, don't worry.
Oh no, I meant did you try it in my own channel is what I meant.
No, not gonna do
okay. That'd have been funny. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. I'm gonna send this over to Yang. She should be live, right? You live?
Yeah, I hit go live. Yep,
Okay.
I'm live.
Okay, I'm sending this over. I'm gonna probably relax here soon and do whatever.
Hey, Autumn.
Hmm?
Thank you for having fun with me today. Oh no, we got banned off YouTube.
Huh?
I'm just making the joke of, oh no, I got close to my mic.
No, you have to go.
No.
You get like breathe and then you're done. Like I just got banned.